Wellfleet Library for hosting this series of I Remember Wellfleet. And so I know John's got a house full of people, but he wanted to stop in and say a few words about what the museum is doing before we get started on this. So John, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks for the forum, Dwight. Appreciate it. And thank you all for showing up this evening. Just wanted to recommend and introduce myself as president of the taking over where Dwight so capably led us for so long. And I just want to let everybody know that some of the things that we're scheduled to be doing this season. Maybe some of you are already scheduled for the 2 sold-out events one's on May 26th, which is on Great Island, Marcus Walk, and then the next one that has no more availability is another one on Cannon Hill, both really very interesting walks. I won't go through the whole.
John, I think you're muted. John? John, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
How are we doing now?
You're fine now.
Okay, so nobody heard my talk.
No, we did. It got muted in the middle.
No kidding. That's interesting. Along with the camera that never worked. Anyway, wherever I was, how far did I get?
You got far. About the walks.
Okay, the walks that was sold out. This one on June 9th, it's not available anymore. It's Cannon Hill. But starting June 16th, there's a whaling talk by Curtis Martin, a commercial fisherman out of Chatham. And that's at 7 o'clock on the June 16th. These are some of the real highlighted ones. And there's a walking tour of Pilgrim Springs and Fox Island. That's on June 23rd. And on August 18th, Steve Broker, he's calling it the archaeology of Duck Creek. When he was very young, he would wade into the mud and find some amazing things. And so he's going to be presenting that, and that's on August 18th, one you don't want to miss. Just one more thing is on August 15th is our annual member meeting. And speaking of members, once again, these programs can be found on our website. We're always looking and gaining new members, and we love new volunteers, docents. Want to mention also that our building project continues to be moving ahead nicely. You may have noticed some of the changes on the front, the garden and the bricks and that sort of thing. Well, we're planning and working very hard to get established so we'll be able to begin building second phase in the fall. So I just want to say we're looking forward to seeing you all at the museum this summer. Please check out our website and enjoy the program. Without further ado, I'll turn this back over to Dwight Estes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And is there anything else, Jennifer, that you'd like to add before we get started?
No, I just want to say that I am recording this, and it will be up on our YouTube channel, and I'll also share it with Cheryl Jaffe so she can share it with Historical Society and museum people. And I know there were a lot of people that wanted to come tonight who couldn't. So this is a way that they can be here so they can see it afterwards, because I'm sure a lot of interesting things will be talked about and heard. And we absolutely love our partnership with the Historical Society and Museum, and absolutely treasure it. And we're just so glad we can continue having these conversations, even if they are over Zoom. So thank you so much, Dwight. And we're looking forward to tonight as we did last year. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And it really is, any success that we have tonight will be from people in the audience that will share the things that they know. I do love working with the museum, and it's always interesting to learn something new. So a night like tonight, anything people will share will just become part of history. if you're like me, you wonder why when people think you're talking about history, you're really just talking about your own childhood. Like remembering that first car that you had, which by now is an antique. The I Remember Wellfleet series is an attempt to coax, cajole, and drag stories of the past out of those who remember what might be a different Wellfleet, what it was like before, in some ways not so different from Fleetians of a century ago. Wellfleet isn't just sunshine or beaches, restaurants, and art galleries and oysters. Wellfleet is also people. And the pandemic bore that out. We miss some of those other things, but mostly we miss being able to congregate, to meet, and to share. And today I hope to get you talking about social groups from the past and present and how important they are to the community. I want to start with a couple of long-standing groups. One is, and they are the Adams Lodge, which is our Masonic Lodge, and the American Legion. The original Adams Lodge was a Paul Revere charter founded after the Revolutionary War by Revolutionary War veterans. After a while, it foundered and went dark, and it turned in its charter. But after the Civil War, a new group of veterans reestablished the lodge in 1865 and soon built the lodge building that we know at the corner of Bank Street and Commercial Street. Does anyone here are there any lodge members or anyone that has any remembrances of things that the lodge has done or of the building?
So Nancy Ray, Robbins Ray, and I certainly remember all of the lobster suppers, but for a historic purpose, my grandfather, Elisha Robbins, and my father, Elisha Robbins Jr., were both, who I forget what you call the person in charge, but the Grandmaster. And they both died. This is a little creepy. They both died in office. So in Wellfleet. So anyway.
Good to see you, Nancy.
Yeah, good to see you as well.
You remember some of the things that they were involved in with people think of this very secretive organization that meets upstairs and they've got a lot of regiment that they go through. If you've ever been lucky enough, the people that are listening, to go upstairs, it is quite a building, and there's a lot of history just in the way that they are organized. But I don't think people realize so much that they do for the community. Behind the scenes, and never out there publicizing, looking for recognition, but certainly there's a lot they do that help to build a community. Nancy, do you remember any things that your father and grandfather were involved in?
Yeah. Well, I would agree. I can't remember any specifics, but I do think that they are a service organization that always wants to contribute to the community.
Does anyone have anything to add to that? I know they were really nice when I was doing walking tours of the town, and I would stop in and they would talk at length. It was easy to spend a half an hour up there listening to the history and listening to the things that they did, but just behind the scenes, helping out families in need. And of course, the decorations at Halloween that they do. And they do try to get involved in the community and keeping the community strong and viable. Another group is the American Legion, which is not as strong as it used to be in town. do we have any American Legion members or people that remember when the American Legion was where now the left bank gallery is?
There's a raise hand icon on the bottom of your screen that you can use. And that's an easy way to see if you are keeping your camera off. So that's just to let you know. And if you are on a device, if you tap the device, you can see that raise hand icon.
So I don't mean to be seeming to I don't remember this, of course, but in the 40s that the American Legion, according to my mother and my aunt and my father, had dances that all the young people came to. So not my memory, but just a verbal memory.
Yeah, I remember Dottie Downs talking about those dances.
Oh, yes, she would know that too.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so sorry that we've lost Dottie, but she remembers being at a dance one time when a person to be unnamed rode in on a horse during the middle of the dance and rode through the dance floor on her horse. So. That American Legion building, by the way, was built in 1933, and it's called the John R. McKay Post because it was built directly across the street from John R. McKay's home, and it was built mostly with volunteer labor, seated up to 500 people, and was at the time it was considered one of the finest in Massachusetts. The John McKay was notable. He's the only town resident to die in the World War. This is from the 1933 paper. Notice that they said the World War because there had only been one World War at the time. We know it now as World War I. And his after he passed away, his mother still lived directly across the street from that when it was built. So it was very nice for her. It was in tremendous disrepair by the time the Left Bank Gallery took it over. It had been used also as for town meetings.
I have Della Spring wrote in the chat that she remembers watching Charlie Chaplin movies there with a live piano player and before it was the Left Bank.
Wow.
Dwight, can I speak?
Sure,
Yeah.
Bill.
I don't have a lot to add, but I think it was the Finest Hour, the rescue of the ship off of Chatham. And it started with a dance, I believe in Wellfleet, which I suspect was the American Legion. So I got next
That's
attention.
interesting now that you bring that up. Yeah. And Audrey Parent, who now has the Left Bank Gallery there, remembers performing. They had a stage in that building, and she remembers performing up on that stage. So it holds special memories for her. If you're ever in the Left Bank Gallery and Audrey is there, don't forget to ask her about it. She had some good stories about being there. That's two pretty much male-dominated organizations we were talking about. I did want to mention, before we get into things that are more current, that there was a decidedly female one in South Wellfleet called the Ladies Social Union. And you might have read about it if there's a book out that we have at the library that talks about that. And it was founded in South Wellfleet in 1881. And the members, all female, were not afraid to take on the social issues of the day, including suffrage. And they took over the unused Pond Hill School and called it the Ladies Social Union Hall. And they had meetings there, social activities. And in 1912, they started the library upstairs, not the town library, but they had their own library upstairs. And it was an offshoot of the Wellfleet Library. If you read old town reports from the 1920s, you'll see that they got donations of books and they got town funding to maintain that library. I don't think anyone here remembers being part of the Ladies Social Union Hall. But in 1937, the building became the location for meetings of the South Wellfleet Neighborhood Association that was started by Professor Frederick Hicks. And prior to purchasing Pond Hill School, the association had met in his house, the Bode Roof. And that South Wellfleet Neighborhood Association still meets. Are there any members or anyone that has been to any of those meetings of South Wellfleet Neighborhood Association? I know we've got a couple of South Wellfleet specialists here. Here's one.
I believe if you're on a computer and you press your space bar, you'll unmute yourself for the time you have your space bar down. So that's an easy way to unmute yourself.
Right. Lisa has a question or a comment.
Well, good evening. This is not Lisa. This is
Yeah, I
her
was gonna-
husband, Donald.
I was saying
Donald
you look
Themis.
like a Lisa.
Yeah, yeah, she registered. I used to go to the South Wellfleet Neighborhood Association meetings when I was little, and we'd always have functions at Christmas and at some of the holidays. Remember playing games, and it was like we'd have potluck dinners also. That was a while ago, but I remember that. Oops.
I know that they still, excuse me. I know that they still have the potlucks. And you'll see the sign out in front of the post office. I know people don't think there is a South Wellfleet. The only 02663 in town is actually the post office. Anything outside the post office is considered Wellfleet. But of course, anyone knows anything south of Dogtown is really South Wellfleet, whether people believe it or not. One of the organizations that I'm involved in is the Friday Night Club, which was started by Elbert Blakesley and Florence Rich. And that's considered the oldest social organization, continually operating social organization in town. It started in 1944. And the group met weekly. Membership was capped at 28 because only 28 people could fit in their house, in Albert's house. And to be a member, you had to agree to give a book report when asked. And although meetings morphed into musical performance, plays, slide presentations, and even puppet shows, it's still loosely based around books. And so there are still book reports that are involved. And then when Elbert died in 1974, it was renamed the Blakesley Memorial Friday Club. And that club still meets once a month at private homes. It moves from home to home during the off season. And I know at least 2 people who have made presentations at that club are watching right now. And I wonder if any of them want to share any discussion of the Blakesley Book Club.
Well, again, sorry, I do remember being a member, and as was my mother and my aunt and many old friends. It's just a delightful, very wonderful, intelligent members who always come with something that particularly interests them. So that was kind of the fascinating part to me. You would learn about Japanese art, you would learn about some medical issue, you would learn about a fascinating book. It was all so varied and, you know, dependent on what the person wanted to offer to the group. Anyway, so yes, it's just a great group that I'm glad is continuing on. And we made many wonderful friends while we were members.
Unmute. Hello.
Hey,
Oh, hi.
So my mother joined the Friday Club in 1945 when she moved here, and I was born the next year. And my recollection was that they met every month and they had 2 things. One was a current topic and the other was a book report. And they would meet in the off season. They wouldn't meet in June, July, or August. It was always in the winter and fall months. And they had quite an eclectic group. They had Edmund Wilson was a member at one point. His wife, there were a lot of people who had varied backgrounds. There was a Chet Zavadsky that used to come to the meetings. And it was quite as I say, an eclectic group. And the current topics would range anything from art to skiing in the Alps to all kinds of things. And as a little kid, we would be fascinated by these people relating their stories. The book reports we didn't pay much attention to, but the current topics were always great. And that was my recollection.
And my parents were.
And Bonnie's parents are in it. My mother was in it till she died. And Albert Blakesley, again, he started it in his house. And his house was the house that Tony Costello lived in, and it burned when I was on the fire department. And now it's if you leave town and you go past the Congregational Church, it's the 3rd driveway, the 3rd house on the left. It sits back from the road, and the woman who owns it rebuilt on Tony Costello's property. And I'll mute.
Don't.
and I see in the background there's a past president and a couple of more members of that group. And most people don't even know about the Friday night group. That's because it's really just, it's been going so long and it's been so formal. There are so many less formal meetings that are held, some are held almost every day. I know there's a group that was so diehard that even though they couldn't meet indoors this winter, they would meet outdoors no matter what the weather to get together. And that's where town decisions are made or ideas are thrown out, and it helps keep people busy in the off season. Certainly, I have a Tuesday morning club that we meet. I like to call them the Rack Line Club because we wash in at 8 and wash back out at 9. And although they could call us the pacemakers based on the health of some of us. But anyway, and I know of a breakfast club, the breakfast club that meets every Monday. There's a group that meets out on the beach every Sunday morning, usually at Powers Landing when the weather's good. So anybody want to talk about any of those more informal groups?
Richard, if you're talking, you're muted.
Okay. There's a group that meets at the Flying Fish. We met all winter long. We were pictured in the local Provincetown Independent with snow all around, and we're a pretty hardy group. The group that Dwight talks about, they meet at 8 o'clock. We meet at 7:30. And going back to the John R. McKay Post, in the 60s, they used to have roller skating there. It was quite an event because that's where people learned how to roller skate. In the winter, if the ponds weren't frozen, you could go roller skating. And then in the 60s, they held town meetings there when Charlie Fraser was the moderator until the building was not large enough to hold the whole town meeting. And I'll mute.
I was a member of the breakfast group. They got together on Mondays and we had a marvelous time. And Nancy was one of the members too. We got together for many years.
And what did the function of those groups, what did it really mean to you to be able to be a part of a group like that?
We learned so many things from each other. It was wonderful. I felt that it was like a continuing education.
I would agree, and I think it was also, and I actually have a picture of, which I need to.
That's right.
Yes, this is a great picture of, I
All of
think,
us.
the core members. I'm not in this because
I'm in that picture in the center.
you are, and I'm so happy to see and hear you, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Nancy, likewise.
Yeah, and I should send you that picture. But at any rate, no, it was not only an exchange of current events, but it was really a support group for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I look forward to it so much every week.
yeah, it started your week off right.
That's right.
What Richard didn't mention when he mentioned that his group meets before ours at the Fish is I do that on purpose so that I can get the information that he garnered in the first meeting. So that's why my way of making sure that I get up to the date information brought to me. So that's how news gets around town. Just give it another minute if anyone else wants to talk about a group that they're in.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Pat.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to add to the breakfast group, our Monday breakfast group. I miss both Mary Ann and Nancy at the group, and actually we haven't met during the COVID period, although we've talked to one another frequently. But I always loved those meetings, not only for keeping up with friends, but we never had a specific theme, but we always ended up on a theme that someone would bring up, and it was interesting talking with everyone and getting together on a regular basis. We met once a week, so it was more than the month of other groups that I'm in.
Pat, how is your hummingbird feeder? Is it up this year?
Oh yes, we've had hummingbirds, and right now we have a rose-breasted grosbeak
Oh, beautiful.
every once in a while. So
I remember on the porch.
excited about that. Good to hear your voice, Marianne.
Thank you, Pat. Likewise.
You sound well.
Is there anyone that I can think of a few more groups that have started as groups that have a purpose, they have a goal to accomplish, and eventually it turns into much more than that, and they become friends, and it becomes social as well. I was part of a group a long time ago, which at the time was called Wellfleet Non-Resident Taxpayers Association. And so that was one group that I enjoyed. They have changed the name, and now I'm not a part-time resident. So if there's anyone from WNRTA that would like to say anything, but also Wellfleet Conservation Trust, which is a huge organization in town for preserving land. And if anybody wants to talk at all about that organization.
Go ahead. Oh, here. Here's, go ahead, let's talk.
There is a poker group that has been going for over 40 years in Wellfleet on Wednesday afternoons. They play penny ante poker.
Go ahead.
And
Right
they
now-
welcome people from as far away as Truro and Eastham.
It's at Mort's house, Mort's Hall.
We meet right now at Mort Inger's house.
Over 40 years.
Say more.
Are you rich now?
John?
Rich in memories. The people change. They get old and die. Younger ones come in, but it's been going for quite a while.
What kind of poker?
Penny ante.
So you're in Truro. This is you're in Truro. What? Say more.
We play for pennies, and no one gets rich, and no one loses very much either.
You don't talk, do you?
We don't talk about politics, and we don't tell. It's not a joke session either.
You have bad jokes, I thought. Let me talk about some of the people who've been in the group. Bernie,
Bernie Kaplan used to be in the group.
who else?
He was a very interesting guy from Eastham.
And I understand today was your first meeting
That's
since
right.
COVID.
It was the first time we got together to play inside.
Sharon told me that.
Yeah, doesn't it feel good that things are starting to open up again?
Yeah,
We remain vigilant and careful, but at the same time, we're starting to feel some of those connections again. My Tuesday morning group met together for the first time. We have Zoomed since last March, every Tuesday morning. And finally, for the last 2 weeks, we've been back live. So
Our Mahjong group, Nancy was a member of and still is whenever she can get to Wellfleet. But our Mahjong group, which has 13 members, meets every week. But as you say, we didn't meet for a year and a half, and then just the past few weeks we've met in person. but we did meet by Zoom every week. And that was nice because we got a lot of conversation, which we don't always get when we play the game. So it was, the conversation was nice for the past year, but it's really wonderful to be in person now. And we're all from Wellfleet.
And some of us from afar, but, and I would say that it was great to be included on Zoom and dip in every once in a while when I'm down in Wellfleet. But again, just a great group of, well, I guess our intent was our original intent was to play the game, but it has become more than that in terms of a support group. Wouldn't you say, Pat?
Absolutely, much more than just
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah.
Good friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm no type of an expert on either the Wellfleet Forum or the Wellfleet Associates, who have played a large part in this town. Is there anyone who, I know I've got one expert on the Associates out in the listening in. Would anyone like to comment on either of those groups?
Are we cut off now?
No? No, we're not.
I'll say something about the forum.
Sure.
Barbara Gray was really the force behind that organization. It still exists, but not with the vigor that Barbara brought to it. I don't know how many of you might remember Barbara. She came here for retirement. She had come from Framingham. In fact, she joined the Massachusetts State Legislature at the same time as Barney Frank, and they both shared an office their first year in the House. And she was probably best known for the motorcycle helmet bill. And when she came down here, and I don't exactly remember the specifics, but there was an issue between the people of the town and the government of the town. And so the forum was really set up as a place where people could exchange ideas, communicate. And so we still do that. We always have like candidates night, or where people can meet the candidates or to go over the pre-town meeting, as well as various other topics. So yeah, that group's been around now for a long time.
Dwight, is it okay to back up and revisit the Conservation Trust?
Certainly.
Because I feel that has been just an amazing organization in the town of Wellfleet in terms of preserving green space for everybody to enjoy. And so, and I think many of us are still members, even if we aren't living in Wellfleet, and really appreciate the hard work. Denny O'Connell really has, spearheaded that for so many years. And I believe his father started it. And actually, when my dad died, I think the memorials for him went to the trust. So I just think it is such a fabulous organization, and Wellfleet is so lucky to have it.
And lucky to have, just as Jeff had mentioned how important leadership was to the forum, just as important that the Wellfleet Conservation Trust has had such tremendous leadership. And and Denny's been at it a long time, and he followed in the footsteps of good people before him. And so we're very fortunate to have that the trust, you know, and if you heard the names on it, they'd be familiar to most of you, but you know, you wouldn't know unless you pay attention to each specific group, just how many people get their fingers into so many things and keep this town running. Jeff Cash, who just spoke a minute ago, he's a past president of the Blakesley Memorial Friday Night Club. So a lot of people do a lot to keep this town connected and moving forward. Is there anyone that wants to speak about Nauset newcomers?
If no one's going to talk, I'll stand up for Nauset Newcomers as a really marvelous organization. It's kind of a misnomer. It's really always appears to be more old timers than newcomers, but such are the semantics. And it's a really, there are so many different groups. My wife Lois is very active in a photo group. There's biking groups, there's kayak groups. They have, of course, you know, as Pat was saying earlier, I mean, COVID's really put a damper in everything. But, you know, we had the dine out committee, and it would be, I served on that, and they would always take people that were new, kind of bring them in, immediately give them some kind of a committee to serve on. And it really is a good way for you to get to meet other people. And so there's social and book clubs and things like that. It's a wonderful organization.
Thank you, Jeff. Another organization that's been around a long time is Chequesset Yacht Club. Any recollections? Or more recently, the Modern House Trust?
I could say something about the Wellfleet Yacht Club because my grandfather was one of the founders of it, I guess. And he had a house overlooking the bay and loved to, well, he loved to sail, first of all, but then he and his wife also loved to sit on the bluff up there and watch the sailboat races. And he did that until he died at age 87 or 88. Yeah, in the late 60s.
Hello. Hey, Dwight.
Yes, Richard.
Okay, I was a caddy at the Chequesset Country Club when Ed Handy was the golf, in charge of the golf. This is before they had carts and everybody you had to carry your bags. And a lot of local people, Charlie Frazier, Wynn Downs, Frankie Adams, a whole group of people would play golf. And there was a group that would play at 6 in the morning and they'd play for about 2 hours because they didn't have to pay. And that was not well known. But anyway, when you're a caddy and you're a kid, you learn a lot about local people and how they golf. But here's the highlight of my golfing caddy career. At the end of the season, Ed Handy and we drained the pond and we recovered probably somewhere like 400 golf balls, which he would polish up and sell the next year. That was the highlight of my summer because he paid me 10 cents a ball for every one I found. That's it.
The highlight of my summer, back when I was working at South Wellfleet General Store, was as you stepped into the store, there was this grate on the ground, just a wooden grate, so that the sand would fall between. And so you wouldn't track sand into the store. And at the end of the season every year, I would move that and get all the sand and all the change people that dropped throughout the summer.
Entrepreneur.
There is another group that meets probably for the last 4 or 5 years. There's Bonnie and I, Moo and Judy Morel, Maureen Dalby and Cliffy until he died, Carol and Dennis Ubiaco, the Donna and Bob McCaffrey, Al Kogas, Maureen, as I said, let me think, who else? Sally Dorr. Anyway, we meet in the summer at Mayo Beach on a Monday night, and it's called the Monday Club, and we share food and stories and true happenings in Wellfleet and things that we would like to have happen. And it's really kind of a social get together. We met this past Monday night with Carol and Dennis Rubiaco, with the McCaffreys, and with Moo and Judy and Maureen Dalby. And it's only a summer thing, and it's usually Monday nights, and that it's a fun group.
There was also the Wellfleet Gardeners Group.
Ah, yes.
And what was their function? I was wondering about gardening groups and vocal groups and music groups and
They discussed plants, and they had a theme every month, and a speaker. It was very educational.
and that is that's done now.
I don't know.
No,
I don't reside
no,
anymore.
it still exists every month, and it's been online, on Zoom all year. So, and actually, since we closed down the in-person things, we've had a couple of meetings every month instead of just one meeting a month.
And are there any noticeable projects in town you could take credit for?
Are you talking to me about the?
I'm talking to anybody, but yes, Pat.
No, not me.
Okay.
Hi.
May I speak about the wonderful group that have been working for the AIM Thrift Shop for the last 50 years?
Thank you.
I've just been doing their archives. So I assume most of you know AIM. But did you know, or maybe you didn't, it's only been set up to buy all the equipment for the clinic, which at that time was the purpose of the reason of our name is the Association for the Improvement of Medical Services on Outer Cape Cod, Inc. And this was set up by the medical community in Boston, because at that time, Dr. Hebert had died in Provincetown, and the last doctor was, I think, a pediatrician in Wellfleet. So you had no one. And it still is a federally funded program, as we are very rural, as you know. What I like about it was the support in me is organized by 3 women, some from Truro, who got on the bandwagon of this great clinic that's going to be here. And they were given the original site, and it was up near the church. It's gone now. It was given at a very cheap rent. And when Alice's restaurant, which is where we are now, which used to be the post office, when Alice retired, and this is not the Alice of Arlo's Alice, we moved down to that shop, And the day they moved, everyone grabbed a cart from Lima's and went up to the old shop and carried merchandise down to the new one. And I sort of like that picture of the local world of Wellfleet in 1966. A member of our board bought the building, bought the post office, so we own that building. She bought that, I think about in the 70s. Eventually, we were part of the Clinic of Wellfleet, but there was a clinic in Provincetown, and in 1978, or was it 87? Sorry, they merged as one, and so they changed their name to Outer Cape Health, as you know it. We've kept our name AIM, which stands for that long title that I told you. So I'm on the board now. Everything's the same. We change personnel, but pretty much it's the same. We've upgraded. You know, we're about to try to having charge accounts. We haven't done that before. So this is going to be our modern innovation this year. So.
David,
I'd like to speak about Outer Cape Health.
yeah, I just wanted to say quickly that David Wright said that AIM was a result of the Wellfleet Associates advocacy.
What's that mean?
It was in 1956,
Yeah.
Barbara Franklin, who was Eleanor Hazen's mother, and my mother and several other people got together because there was no clinic in Wellfleet. And
That's
they
right.
had young kids and young children that needed a clinic. So they got together and they started what's called AIM.
No, I'm
And
sorry.
AIM
57? Go ahead.
1956. So the building that they purchased, they got the land, the building they purchased was a prefab building from Sears and Roebuck. And that's the building that was replaced just recently by the new Outer Cape Health. Originally, it was boxes that came down on trailers that they assembled in the 56 and 57 and 58. And what you used to go into in those years was that building. It was a flat roof building. It was at the time state of the art, but as time went on, it was very antiquated. The new building is fabulous, absolutely unbelievable. So the people who, and by the way, it was Alice Winterbottom who had Alice's restaurant. And that restaurant was the only little one in town where all the local politicians, businessmen, Charlie Frazier, Wilkinson, all the people used to go for lunch every day. Alice was a very large woman with a very odd name, Winterbottom, obviously. But it was the place where they'd go to eat their lunch almost every single day. But that has nothing to do with AIM. And AIM has evolved into, as you well know, into the clinic that it is today with a satellite place in Howard and one in Provincetown. But the main one started in Wellfleet. That's my memory.
Well, it's, we were hoping to go from 7 o'clock to 8, and here we are coming up on 8, and people still have things to talk about, which I think is a great thing. We're going to sign off in a few minutes if one or two people more want to talk, but I do want to mention that we will still occasionally do I Remember Wellfleets as long as we can come up with topics that people want to talk about. So please, if you have any ideas for topics, I saw one today and people were online talking about the old candle shop. And so there's always something to talk about in Wellfleet. But if you have any ideas, you can, if you see me, just say hi and give me an idea, or just send it to the Wellfleet Historical Society and they'll get those ideas to me. Anybody else want to close with a special group that they are fond of, that they'd like to talk about?
Well, I would just say that the memory of moving AIM from one end of the street to the other reminded me so much of when the library, our wonderful host tonight, moved from upstairs at Town Hall to their current location. So, and people came with book carts, I believe. I didn't witness this, but I sure heard about it, and toted everything down to the new building.
That was triggered because the town hall burned, if you remember, in 1960 or 61. So the library, the books that were left over went up to the elementary school, and they decided they needed a new place for books. So when it got rebuilt, then they purchased the then candle factory, which was remodeled into the present library.
And I know a huge group, especially as far as the library is concerned, is friends of the library. So if we didn't get a chance to talk about that, I know we've got a lot more library stories that we can hit on another time. And we'll let and we'll talk about friends of the library at that time. I really have to thank everybody that showed up. I know that you had, there are a few other things going on in town tonight, but you picked the exciting one. I remember Wellfleet. I want to thank all of you that shared. Nancy, I haven't seen you in a long time. Great to see you tonight. And so we hadn't met for a while, but we're back meeting, and can't wait to hear more stories in the future. And for those people that didn't have a story for us tonight, maybe you'll have a story for us next time. So I want to thank you all for coming. And it's 8:01 by my watch, and I think we're going to let Jennifer finally relax. And
I love it. Are you kidding me? And I love hearing that you're all meeting in person again. It's very heartening.
all right. Thank you, and thank everyone for attending. Good night.
Good night.